And so for the agenda for the final session here is we'll first start with our virtual happy hour with Rachel Green here, who's our mixologist. Then we'll have Andy speak a bit to how his sort of path from becoming one of our first customers to our chief scientific officer. And then we'll have a special video to celebrate our 10 years. And Ewan and James will close it out. So with that, let me pass it on to Rachel.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi. Welcome to class. Here, I'm going to plug in my little microphone here. Give me a thumbs up to make sure that you can hear me. I just wanted to unplug it here. Give me a thumbs up, you can hear me.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, great. Awesome. So welcome to class, or should I say my bar. In this class, we will learn the science and art behind the delicious balance in cocktail creation. Well, what is balance? Well, in the cocktail world, it's when a cocktail is balanced in flavor, density, and at the end of the day, it's just enjoyable to consume, right? When it's not enjoyable, it's not balanced, and that means it's not engineered correctly, and it doesn't work. So balance is kind of similar to engineering and designing things in the nano world, except these measurements are obviously much larger. Dating back to when balance first became a conversation in cocktails in 1806, when it was first defined in a publication in New York as a foundation of creating cocktails. Starting from the whiskey cocktail, for perfect balance to be attained, you need to have 4 components to make a balanced cocktail. Now, you have spirit, duh, right? Sugar for rounding out the heat, bitters for complexity and aromatic, and then water. Who would have thought, right? So water actually comes in the form of ice, and what it does is that it dulls down the intensity of all these flavors so it's actually enjoyable and refreshing, right? So the whiskey cocktail, or the bittered sling, is the foundation of what we call the old fashioned, which was created, give me one second. There you guys are. Which was created because whiskey was, like harder to drink than it even is now, because there wasn't nearly enough science going into the balance of creation. And that just gives us a better platform to make even better cocktails now, right? So, but how it relates is it's the foundational recipe is where the birth of modern mixology hits. So even though there's many amazing cocktails that we experience out of the bar stemming from this foundational recipe, there are, however, other components to take into consideration. So with our cocktail today, we are looking at some of the ingredients based off of the recipe that we are working with. I printed it out. I don't have a color printer, but it's fine. So the Gin Boy Lit has a variety of different ingredients, not just those 4 components, right? So we have things like lime, sugar, vodka or gin, soda water, ice, cucumber, mint. And what do each of these components play as a role in this balance in a cocktail, right? So you have gin, which is your spirit, check. You have sugar, which is your component, check. So we have our sugar here, which is a simple syrup. We have soda water, and then we have cucumber and mint for aromatic. But where does the lime play in, right? Well, it's actually kind of interesting because they didn't even use lime in cocktails until like the 1850s. But does anyone want to take a guess at why they started using citrus with alcohol? Anybody? No? Bueller? Well, they started using citrus in cocktails because for centuries, people in the Navy were coming down with a really difficult illness, which you probably understand as a vitamin deficiency, called scurvy. And what scurvy, a way for them to cure scurvy is they actually stuffed limes into bottles of gin, which not only made it possible for them to have vitamin C on long voyages, but it also made gin really tasty. Now that is the foundation of a gimlet, if you've ever had a gimlet before. So let's go ahead and start by juicing our lime, and we'll get into making this cocktail recipe, right? You guys ready? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so first we're going to cut our lime into a nice little form here. I like to juice always fresh lime, because when you're using things such as lime from concentrate, you don't really have those really important characteristics. And a lot of the times those limes are actually even more bitter by using like the squeeze bottle of lime juice or different things that you get from the dry parts of the grocery store. So using fresh lime is really important. So we're just going to come and squeeze fresh lime juice, and we're going to get as much as we can from one lime. Ultimately, all we're going to need is 1 ounce, which is going to be 2 centiliters, right? I'm trying to work in centiliters here for the first time for you guys. I'm trying to impress you. We are going to be doing 1 ounce, which is 3 centiliters. So we're going to go ahead and start by doing that. And if you haven't actually created your little cucumber balls here, so these are super easy to make. I just used, what is this, little half a teaspoon, and I just went into the side of my cucumber and pull these out. Now, the reason I'm doing cucumber balls for you guys is so they kind of look like little nanoparticles, right? So these are really, really fun. And because there's no skin attached, you get a lot of that cucumber flavor without that kind of fibrous part of the rind. So I went ahead and balled a bunch of these little melon pieces. So you're gonna go ahead and set that aside. If you haven't already done that, you can feel free to do that now. So I'm gonna go ahead and do 1 ounce. So let's do my little beaker here. I'm just going to measure 1 ounce of our lime juice. Perfect. Yum. Now this is actually really interesting. So like I was saying about balance, it's kind of really important to understand how this process goes. Now, obviously, when you're working with nanoparticles, you can't try things as they go. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I'm not a nanoscientist, but I am a flavor scientist, and it's really good to know what things taste like as they go. So a really great way to see how it evolves is to taste things as they go. So we're going to go ahead and start by like tasting a little bit of our lime juice. So you can get a smell, you can see it smells super bright and fresh. You can taste it, it tastes bitter, astringent, definitely acidic. And that acidity is gonna be balanced with our sugar component, which we're going to add next. So I have my mixing glass here, and we are gonna go ahead and add this ounce of lime juice, which is perfect. Now, the important part about balance is figuring out what is going to have the right balance for flavor. Now, if you're working with lemons, you can actually do an equal parts. And ultimately, when we're making a sour, which is what we're doing now, we're gonna do primarily equal parts. But there are other things that play into this. So we're actually gonna only do 3/4 of an ounce of our simple syrup. So measuring that out, that's going to be 2.21 centiliters. That's actually going to be probably easier for me to use. So we are going to go ahead and do 2.25 centiliters here. And then we are just going to go ahead and add that to this mixture. Now this is awesome. So you can actually give this a little bit of a swirl if you'd like to, semi-turbulent. And then you can actually taste this too. And you can see as it starts to evolve, how it starts to have this rounding flavor to it. Really bright, and almost that simple syrup almost brings out that floral nature that you get from the lime, which is pretty awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead, and this is the foundational sour recipe for a gimlet. So you can actually, when you add a little bit of that gin, which one should I use, guys? I'm actually going to use one from New Orleans. This is a really awesome gin that I worked with. They're from New Orleans. They have like persimmon and some other really fabulous things in there. And we're going to actually do 6 centiliters. So I'm going to do 60 milliliters of our gin. Wow, that actually worked out really perfectly. Looks like I'm gonna need another bottle of that. So if you are making a mocktail version, you don't have to worry about this part at all. We're actually gonna teach you how to do it with soda water there at the end. So no worries on that if you're not using alcohol. I know it's early for some of you, so maybe after hours. So we're gonna go ahead and add that in. And now this is actually the recipe for our gimlet, which is the foundational recipe of this cocktail. So this is where mixology comes in. You get to play around with adding a few different things. So adding soda water, cucumber, and mint is where we're going to be varying in this. So we're going to go ahead by adding our cucumber first. Now, I said in our recipe we can do 2. You could do a little bit more if you'd like. If you want like a little bit more of that cucumber flavor, I'm going to do 3 just because. And that actually isn't going to impact the balance very much. So you can have a little bit more of that flavor if you'd like. So you can actually see my little melon balls floating around in there. And then the last thing that we're gonna add in here is our mint. So if your mint is kind of sad looking, you can actually, I have a bunch of ice and water in here. You can dunk your mint face down, top down, and it'll actually brighten it up super bright if your mint's looking a little sad. So that's a really great way to use that. So we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4 to 6. So I'm actually gonna do a couple more. 2, 3 mint leaves. You see those floating there on top. And then we're going to muddle these things together. So to muddle is to ultimately press, but not break down completely. So we're just going to press slightly to incorporate these ingredients nice and easy. You don't want to break the cell walls of the mint too much because then it actually starts to become bitter from the chlorophyll. So that is it. So pretty perfect. We are just going to add a little bit of ice to our tin, which we can actually start to do these things simultaneously. So this here is my cocktail glass, and this is my mixing glass. I'm going to go ahead and add, because I have my dry ice on top, I'm going to go ahead and add, ooh, very, very cold. I'm going to grab this guy here. And I am definitely going to be using my tongs to grab a piece of dry ice, because we all know that it's very dangerous, right? So we are going to use this dry ice, and we are just going to drop it in the bottom of our cocktail glass. And you can actually hear it. It's like, it does this thing where it makes noise when you drop it onto glass. It's really interesting. Maybe you guys can define that a little bit for me. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add our cucumbers into our glass. 3 and 4. And then we are going to actually put ice both in our mixing glass and in our cocktail glass. Now, this is what we do at the bar to save time. When we are adding ice to our mixing glass, you can actually already see it starting to smoke there or evaporate quickly, right? Because dry ice is CO2. So we are just going to add that much ice, enough to cover the cocktail, because we're doing a type of mixing called a whip. And this is a turbulent style of mixing. So we're actually not going to be doing, a non-turbulent mixing, which is when we stir cocktails. Because when we're using things like citrus and things that have different densities, we want to shake those things to become a homogeneous mixture. When things have the same density, like it is in an old fashioned or a Manhattan, it's preferred to stir it so that it actually has a more velvety texture. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shake this guy. And we're going to shake this back and forth so that it gets nice and turbulent, aerated. And we're doing a couple of things here. We are chilling, we are incorporating the ingredients, and we are diluting slightly, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that just for a little bit. And that is actually called a whip. Now I'm going to grab my soda water out of the fridge and pop this guy open here. Ooh, love that sound. And we are going to, we can go ahead and pop that open. And we are going to measure 2 ounces or 6 centiliters, 60 milliliters. Here we go. And we're actually going to dump that right in our tin. The reason why we didn't do this before is because that would expand inside of that shaker tin and it would remove that seal. So we are going to go ahead and strain into our glass. Perfect. All right. Now this is definitely a science project. It's bubbling so crazy. All right, so the last thing that we're gonna do is we are going to take our mint, smack it on the back of our palms or the back of our hands here. And that is going to open up the aromatic without breaking those cell walls and without making it less than pretty. And we are just gonna tuck it right into the side of the glass. And if you'd like, you can sip straight from there, or you can grab a straw. And here you go. We have the gin boy lit, my friends, and cheers to you. Welcome to class. Class dismissed.
Hey, thank you, Rachel. That looks amazing. Great.
Cheers. Okay. That's delicious. What do you guys think?
Looks awesome. Wish we had one.
Awesome.
It wasn't virtual. Looks delicious.
And the recipe will be posted, right?
Yeah.
And so, Rachel, just a little bit of trivia for you. The US used to call the British sailors limeys because of the limes that they had to inhibit scurvy. So that's where the term limey comes from.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Hey,
I
does
have to
anyone know
write
how to
that down
get
for
dry
later.
ice? How do you get dry ice?
Good question. Yeah.
How do you get dry
Okay.
ice? That is such a great question. So you can actually call, depending on what grocery store you have. If you're on the West Coast, you can actually go to Ralph's or Smart and Final. You can go to a local grocery store. I call ahead of time and just ask if they have dry ice in stock. But most regular grocery stores do carry it, because a lot of people use dry ice when they're going on camping trips, because it doesn't make all of their stuff in their coolers wet. So it's actually pretty regularly available. Every time I go to the store to grab it, they're like, "Do you know this is dangerous, right?" Yes, I know. So it is very important to handle it with care.
And what's a good sugar syrup you'd recommend? What did you
Awesome.
use?
So sugar syrup is super fun to play around with. So I would actually recommend, and you can measure this by weight. So you can use, let's say you use a certain percentage or a certain weight of sugar. You're going to match that with hot water. And then you actually incorporate that. And the reason why we use simple syrup, such as this, is because it makes it so that it's a much more consistent flavor all the way through. Because like, how many times have you made an iced coffee or an iced tea and all the sugar granules fall to the bottom, or honey as well? So you can do the exact same thing with honey, that 1-to-1 ratio, and it's going to be really, really fantastic. You can do it. Maple syrup already has like a very kind of liquidy consistency. You really only want to do this for things that solidify when they get cold. So things like honey and sugar, which doesn't obviously incorporate.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Appreciate all the feedback and explanation there. All right.
Awesome. Great.
All right, so
Thank you
with
guys so much for letting me come in and make you cocktails in the beginning of the day.
All right,
All right.
thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Cheers,
you.
everyone.
Cheers. Okay, and with that, we're going to move to the next section of this bit, which will be our CSO, Andy, who will tell us his story about how he came from being the first NanoAssembler customer in the Boston area to becoming now our CSO. So Andy, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Shel. Yeah, so I first came across Precision NanoSystems around the 2010 timeframe. You know, we'd started up the RNA vaccine program at Novartis Vaccines, and we were, using lipid nanoparticles to make formulations. We'd taken some of the, seminal work using syringe drivers, T-mixers. We were making particles, and it was working very well. But really, there wasn't a path forward. Commercially, senior management, they didn't want to see the, progression unless there was a solution to a large-scale manufacture. So we're exploring what was available. We came across the work on microfluidics. We came across Precision NanoSystems, and we worked with Ewan Ramsey to really get the first benchtop nanoassembler system in the lab. We underwent the training. At the same time, we were actually working with a company called Spectrum Labs, who had a 2 mil TFF cartridge, so that we actually mimicked at a benchtop we had the nanoassembler, we had the TFF unit from Spectrum Labs, sterile filtration. So we had the industrial process, and we had a lipid library we wanted to screen. I didn't have the bandwidth and resources to put full-time people on it. We had interns, so I used the intern program to begin the screening program using the nanoassembler, and it was a perfect fit. And we began to screen and develop, more potent formulations. The first formulation we took forward was D-Lin DMA from, the work that had been published by Peter and his team. It was published, it was commercially, we can have it commercially synthesized. The process was straight from the literature. But with the nanoassembler, we started to optimize and redesign stuff. None of that work was published in the end. We published on the work using the T-mixer. But in the background, the nanoassembler was going flat out. And we were designing a scalable process to convince our senior management that there was a path forward for a lipid nanoparticle at a commercial scale. And that program was very successful. And 2015, I departed Novartis, which had become GSK, and I transitioned to Avidity Nanomedicine, which became Avidity Biosciences, to develop an antibody siRNA conjugate program. And I formed my own single-person a consultancy company for RNA vaccines. And that's when James and Ewan brought me on board as a consultant. About 4 years ago, I became a member of the Scientific Advisory Board, and ultimately a couple of years ago, chair of the Scientific Advisory Board. And I saw the herringbone microfluidic chip morph into the next generation. I saw the build out from to the Blaze, to the GMP system, and all of the scale up process work that went into that. And then I saw the initiation of P&I's proprietary LNP delivery platform a couple of years ago as we started to synthesize all the new lipids. I chose to leave Avidity, come on board full-time as the Chief Scientific Officer in early April at the height of the COVID to start to explore opportunities to do a Canadian self-amplifying mRNA vaccine for COVID. And a few weeks ago, we successfully announced, the Canadian government was funding that opportunity. Obviously, there's a lot more going on at Precision NanoSystems than RNA vaccines. We have a lot of collaborators. We have research use kits. We're working in the cell therapy space, the gene therapy space, the gene editing space, and vaccines as well. So that's my journey, since 2010, and looking forward to the next 10 years.
Great. Thank you, Andy. And so are we. We're really glad to have you on board and to drive our vaccine initiatives here. All right, with that, we do have a special video coming online. If you guys on the Zoom side want to pin Joanna's video, you'll be able to see it. But let's roll the video for our special 10-year celebration.
My name's James Taylor. I'm co-founder, CEO of Precision NanoSystems.
I would say that our mission hasn't changed. So what we set out to do, and as anyone has a beer with Ewan and I, and we talk about the lore of the good old days, we founded the company on a grant that was doing siRNA delivery to make personalized cancer drugs. And so we've been true to this vision of genetic medicines and where we thought the field was going.
My name is Ewan Ramsey. I'm a co-founder and the Chief Commercial Officer at Precision NanoSystems. When I started this company, it's always been about developing new treatments for patients. And I think we're working in an area where we're looking at a totally new type of medicine, a medicine that can have the potential to impact so many diseases, particularly diseases that currently have no treatment, that the impact that we can have is substantive. So Precision NanoSystems has changed markedly over the 10 years that we've been in existence. And this is really learning with working with our customers as what they need to be successful.
I would say over the last 3 years, and I think the contract service work we do really was a pivotal part in their change of thinking, in that we realized that it isn't enough just to provide a box and say, hey guys, drug developer, knock yourself out, develop the drugs of the future. We need to provide them everything we absolutely can in a comprehensive way to have them succeed and bring these drugs to patients.
So my name's Tim Lever. I'm the Senior Director of Commercial Operations at Precision NanoSystems, and I've been involved in this work since 2011. It was a very exciting time of seeing how when you are meeting a need, a lot of other things don't matter.
And so, our vision of the future, we strongly believe that medicines will be built specifically for the molecular basis of a person's disease. That might be shared across the population, or it might be specific to one person. We strongly believe actually that drugs, because of this, will be developed magnitudes order faster. We've done this in preclinical, but we're also seeing it in clinical. And we also think that increasingly manufacturing of drug products will be patient-centric. So we can continue doing centralized manufacturing, but localized manufacturing will be the first foray into this. So being able to manufacture, say, in country, or in sites all over the world making the same drug, all the way to be putting an Ignite system into a hospital and having a vending machine of drugs that where a patient gets sequenced and then has a bespoke medicine made for them directly in the hospital. That will, that's going to happen in our lifetime, guarantee it.
All right, thank you for that. Next, I think it's high time for James and Ewan to give a speech here.
I think I already gave a speech. It was on that video.
So I'll go first, James, and you
go first.
Finish off here. So I have to say, I muted that entire video. There's nothing worse than watching yourself and then listening to your own inane drivel. So someone else will have to tell me what it said. So I think firstly, I'd like to thank all the speakers and the panelists and the hosts and the participants for joining us over the last couple of days. It's certainly found it informative and inspiring. Thanks to everyone, Jane and everyone else at Precision for organizing this. 10 years, it's long and it's gone in a blur. And I think, frankly, there's easier ways to get a cocktail than starting a company. I am pleased to see, though, that we can make a vaccine quicker than Rachel can make a cocktail. So that's certainly gratifying. Great to have Peter Cullis with us. As I mentioned to Peter, listening to his talk, reflecting that another overnight success that's 30 plus years in the making. And in reality, as we just got to the start line, this is just the beginning, I think, as we heard in the Q&A. And so I think really like to acknowledge Peter and his leadership in the LNP field. I think very understated, the Canadians and their contribution to this. In contrast, I don't think we can overstate the importance of this technology in opening up this future and really helping us get out of the sticky patch that we have in the moment. So Peter, I think, congratulations to you. Very understated, although in public he is. When in private, he's always telling me how good he is. And I think James and I thank Peter for the opportunity. Peter, very supportive here, provided the resources and the support and allowed James and I to go on, brought Carl Hansen in, so we looked at microfluidics, allowed James, Carl and I to wander off in this pretty crazy direction. So I really appreciate the opportunities provided us here.
Yeah, well, just one thing, Ewan, I don't know if you have a picture of the presentation that you gave, at least in London in about 2012, where we had a mock-up of the device of the nano assembler, and it had nothing inside it.
I think a mock-up is generous, Peter. Frankly,
this is where your ability to sell. I was going to say ice to Eskimos, but it's not quite that. Because we actually did sell an instrument there. Remarkable.
We sold two.
Yeah,
we sold two.
On the basis
we got paid. We got paid before we delivered by about 6 months.
And then it went down.
But the picture of I think it was 3 of you in the same room. There was a. That's one of those things that's you should really find that one again and frame it for 30, because we started pretty it was hanging on by fingernails at some points, that went on from there. But I want to make a real tribute to Ewan in particular in the early stages, and that was with that team grant that we got, because I think Ewan wrote damn near all of it. That was seminal in getting the company going. And then to James, again, the early stages of a company where you're operating on the basis of minimal amounts of money, operating in large part out of my lab. It's a very nerve-wracking stage of things, but you really did manage to put it all together in a way that it all made sense, and you've convinced me of something which I didn't realize, which was the how much it is that other people hate to formulate. Because that's all we did and do in the lab, of course. And so I thought, okay, well, we can give instructions to other people, and then they can make whatever. But that's just not the case. And I think you spotted an sales opportunity that I didn't see at all, and it's led on to great things. So congratulations to the two of you. It's a terrific accomplishment.
No, thanks, Peter. You kind of got me in. So James, sorry, a couple of quick more ones, and I'll get over to you, because I just wanted to make sure that Peter at Big Influence recognized other key people. Andrew Booth, who joined us at the beginning, is now the chair of a board. Big Influence here. Joe Victor, who championed the investment from 5am. Both Joe and Andrew, very practical advice, I think, which is really beneficial when you're growing. And I also like to acknowledge one of our other kind of mentors here, part of the team, Steve Reichenbach, our CFO. Steve joined us in 2015. He's the grown-up or old person, as I suppose is a bit other way of putting it. But Steve joined us part-time in 2015 and has been working full-time ever since. So that was a good deal. We need to thank the Canadian government for their funding. We need to thank friends, family, angel investors. We need to thank 5am Ventures, Telegraph Hill Partners, Rising Tide, our board, our scientific advisory board. And we really need to thank our customers. Because frankly, we can have all the backing and all the ideas in the world, but it's only the people that work with us that really validate there's some value there. And I thank them for their support, their patience. They're an inspiration to us. And I think what they're doing and the fact that we can be part of it and creating these new transformative medicines is really humbling and gratifying. A couple last things. Thank James. 10 years we've been doing this together. You know, I think it's been equal parts exhilaration and exhaustion. I think it's gone remarkably smoothly. I mean, some people have asked what the secret for success is, and I think James would agree that when we disagree, he knows that I'm right. So that's how we've managed to move on here, James. Before you get opportunity to reply, and I think the other thing, frankly, is realize that time is not a renewable resource, and we have a growing and very talented team, and that team has choices, and they've chosen to work at Precision, and I am gratified and humbled by the dedication, the passion, the commitment to that shared vision. And I think what's so great now is that when I think, if I'm thinking about, before even I've got a thought out my head, the team is essentially stampeded past me and has already solved it. And I think that is amazing. So I look forward to see where the team is going to take us over the next 10 years, but please recognize and accept my gratitude for everything that you've done. James, you're right to there.
Excellent. Well, I think you got most all of my thank yous. So I won't repeat in detail, but I would say we did found the company on the back of this CHR grant. And I think that was, and I thank you, Ewan, that was the first time and the last time that you kissed me. So I appreciate that. But it has been quite a journey over the 10 years. And it's interesting because I think the cool thing, one of the coolest things is we really have had the vision, the same mission the whole time. And it's based around, this concept of genetic and systems medicine and that enabling something that couldn't be enabled otherwise. And it really does, 2020 probably more than any other year feels just like the start of this whole field. And I think COVID has been, it's been a tremendously hard year for lots of reasons, but a tremendously productive and exciting year as well. And it has really accelerated this field that we're in. And that plus, our contributions to the field have really helped to bring in something that I think is going to make a huge impact in medicine, and medicine will never, go back. And I'm very much a technologist more than politics or, different styles of economics or things. I feel like technology is the one thing where you never go backwards. So it's the one area where you can contribute in your life and push humanity forward in a, monotonically increasing direction. And so I think society is not going to go back to inferior technologies once we bring these forward and push the ball forward. And we're going to see as we move forward, these concepts of RNA medicine, vaccines, the ability to do things and treat disease on ways that just were just science fiction, like last year, right? It's absolutely amazing. So, big thanks to everyone. Really echo Ewan from all the groups that have supported us, our users, which are, the most important things to us, and, the team and the impact that we've made. So I really appreciate it. And, look forward to pushing the ball forward. Great.
Okay.
Excellent. So, back to work. Stop drinking on Wednesday mornings, everyone.
I had a couple of scotches while the mixologist was on. So.
That's a normal Wednesday for you, Peter. Come on. Yeah. Excellent. So what's next?
Done.
Are we done?
James, yes. Well, we have all of our folks here. So I just wanted to give anybody an opportunity. If anybody wants to add anything yourselves, you guys feel free, your attendees and your panelists. So just unmute yourself if you'd like and share anything you want to share. Some of you are new to this and some of you have been around for almost the whole 10 years. So if anybody wants to just add a personal note or say anything, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll wrap up.
I'd like to sort of pipe in here. When I joined PNI 5 years ago, I had been going through, a family health issue. My dad had been diagnosed with cancer. It was stage 4. There was no hope. And, it was really good to be joining a company that is, helping other people accelerate these types of medications, and to hopefully in the future, other people don't have to live through what I did. So I'm very proud to be here and very proud of the direction this company is going. Thank you all.
Yeah. Anyone else? Well, then we are close to wrapping. We're going to wrap up, but I don't know if you have sorry, I don't have my picture showing. If you have a Diet Coke, if you have a coffee, if you have a tea, if you have a cocktail, whatever you have, if you don't mind lifting it up. And cheers. Congratulations, Precision NanoSystems.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you all.
Awesome. To the next 10.
Bye-bye.
Okay, talk to you later.
Yeah.